Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar Total Telephony. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions. So my name is Sam Connor. I'm a sales engineer here at Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface. We're based in the UK, in the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services to help you with Bitrix24, starting off with pre-sale support. So we can answer any questions and really check if Bitrix24 would be a good solution for your business. If it is, we can then set up the system and implement your requirements. If you're interested in a self-hosted edition, we offer our own hosting services and we can provide training and ongoing dedicated premium support. Okay, so first of all, if you're new to Bitrix24, maybe you've come to the webinar to get more information about the system. Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. There are over 10 million customers that use Bitrix around the world, and the system is available in two different editions. So you have the Bitrix Cloud and the Bitrix24 self-hosted, or also called on-premise system. And prices start from $49 per month for a cloud edition, and for a self-hosted system starting with the Business 50, that's available for $2,990. Okay, so today's webinar is Total Telephony. So we're going to be having a look at the telephony integrations that are available within Bitrix24. I think first of all, it's important to understand why you could and should use Bitrix24 for your telephony requirements. So first of all, Bitrix has a built-in phone system ready to use. So we'll see how all we need to do is purchase a number, and then we have a built-in call center system ready to utilize straight away. So there's very little setup required with the built-in phone system. You could also, if you want to integrate with an existing PBX, if you want to keep your number, or maybe you have a call package with a certain provider, it's possible to continue with that and feed calls directly into Bitrix. There is also CRM integration, and this is a really nice feature because it allows you to record calls against each contacts page in the system. You can see their details when they call in, and you can click to call directly from the contacts page in the CRM. There's also reporting tools, and it's a very low setup cost in terms of if you were going to rent a number, for example, cost will start from anywhere between $4 to $6 per month, so it's a very low setup cost. Okay, so we're going to run through today are the two different options to manage telephony in Bitrix24. So the first option we've got is Bitrix Telephony. So this is where you rent a number directly through Bitrix24. The second option is integrations. So that's integrating with another phone provider, one maybe where you have your own existing numbers. So first of all, today we're going to have a look at Bitrix Telephony. Okay, so what we're going to do here is look at how we can set up our number for Bitrix Telephony, and then we'll look at how we can configure our settings to set up our virtual phone system, and we'll see how this integrates with the CRM system and softphone app. So let's just go to our Bitrix system. Okay, so when you're going to set up your Bitrix Telephony, we need to go to our telephony menu here. So on the menu, we have the telephony module. We click into here, and this will open up the telephony module. So when you want to rent a number and use the Bitrix telephony method, what you want to do is come to the rent a number button here. And what this allows you to do is to select a country where you would like to rent a number for. So I'm going to select the UK. And then from there, I can choose the type of number. So if it's a local, a mobile, for example, I can then choose a region. and then I can purchase that number. So I'm going to, for example, here that would be a local Hull number that I can purchase for $6 per month is the cost for renting of that number. Now, that includes all inbound calls to that number, and outbound calls are charged per minute based on the country you are calling to. So we have the call rates here, and it's managed through Vox Implants, telephony provider. So we will add the call price list here into the YouTube video for you to access. So this gets updated daily in the system. So it's just to really make sure you are aware if you're going to be calling lots of different countries, just check the call rates here, because depending on the country you call to, there will be different costs on those outbound calls. And that's really as simple as it is. If you're going to rent a number through Bitrix, you can select the country, the type of number in the region, and then you're good to go. One thing just to mention, for certain locations, such as if I was to select a Germany number, for example, you do have to, for certain countries, show a valid postal address for certain locations. So just check before you purchase the number that there may be a requirement to show that valid postal address. So just as a word of warning there, and you would upload your verification documents into here. And with some countries as well, there is a connection cost on top of the monthly renting of the number. And once you have added your number, then you can top up your balance here. So you add credit to your account balance, and then when you make those outbound calls, your balance is reduced as you're going through those calls. And now we can see one of our numbers here that we have rented. So all of the numbers that you rent, they will display here in your My Numbers section. And when you have done this, you can then start to configure your virtual phone system. So we can see we have our rented number here. We're paying $6 per month. And for each number, we can then configure our own virtual phone system. So we go into the configuration area, and we have lots of different settings that we can configure for that number. So first of all, for example, on the inbound call routing, I can set up different options. So for example, here I might want to play some welcome music. I could also set up a voice menu. So this is an IVR menu. So what this does is it allows the person who calls to select different options. So when they call up here, for example, we have two options. Press 1 for Max Smith, who's a certain employee in the business, or we can press 2 to go through to the sales team. So it gives the customer different options where we can then route the call. And this is really useful because it will save time, so the customer can select the right option that what they're calling for. So it could be another option is maybe they're calling for support, so you could add a third option, which is maybe a support option. So inside here I can then select a group of people, for example, that this could go to, and maybe I want it to go to a default group, which is our support team. And then within that group, what I can do is select all of the users who that call can then be routed to. So you could set up your sales team for a group, for example. You could set up your support team. So calls can then be processed really quickly to the appropriate area of the business. We can, as I mentioned, set up CRM integration. So if inside here, for example, if the number is not registered in the CRM from the person who's calling, we could automatically create a new lead in the system, for example. And we'll have a look later on at what it looks like when someone from your CRM records calls into the system, so we can see all of their information. You also have the ability to record calls. So if you want to have a call recorded, and it can also be saved directly in the CRM system into the customer's page, you can turn on the save record option. And we can also play a recorded warning message on inbound calls. If you want to have certain maybe office hours, we can set up our working time. So we can select when we're going to be available to actually answer those calls. And when it's out of office hours, you can then select different options here, maybe record a message for the customer to let them know that we're shut for the time being. And we can also set up some additional options. So maybe for outbound calls, we can select a prefix for what that number is. You could set up some hold music if the customer is waiting, and so on. So you can see there's lots of different settings we can run through for every single number that we use in the system. And obviously you don't want all of your employees within Bitrix to be able to make those changes. It may only be your administrators, for example. So what we can do in the telephony module is set up access permissions. So inside here, we can assign different roles for each user in the system. And based on that role, we can then set different access rights. So for example, inside here, for example, those telephony settings we looked at, we can allow them to have access to that. But maybe for certain users, we deny all access. So you can set up those access rights inside here for different roles in the system and then apply that role for different users. So I can come into here, for example, and I can then set the different access rights for different people. So it's really simple to set up. Now we mentioned how this then can interact with the CRM system. So when any of your members from the CRM call into the system, it can display their information. So I'm just going to now show you when one of our members of our contacts in the CRM calls our rented number, it's going to show their information on Bitrix. Okay, so we can see the contact Mark Moon is calling into the system. All of their details are showing on here. So we can then answer that. We can transfer the call, for example. So it's going to show all of their details. So even before we answer that call, we can see exactly who's going to be calling into the system. We can prepare for that call. And now if we go into the CRM, we can then also see that information directly in the contacts page. So if we go into one of our contacts in the system, what we can see here is all of that call activity can be saved in the contacts page. So here, for example, in the contacts activity stream, all of their history can be saved inside here. So for example, we have a call recording. So maybe I want to come back and play that call back.
We can forward, so using.
Okay, so we can play those calls back. Maybe we want to just familiarize ourselves with maybe a conversation we had with the customer previously. So that's really simple and easy to play those calls back. I can also click to call directly through the page here. So you can answer those and create calls directly inside your contacts page here. And another quite nice feature as well, you can also set up call lists. So this is quite common in call centers. We could select maybe certain contact types, for example, so maybe all of our client type here. And then based on that list, what I could then do is I can select actions. So it could be, for example, I want to create a new call list and apply this for a certain group of people to go through. So I can select when this call list is going to be scheduled as an activity. And I can add a description. Okay, and then I can say this to a certain person who would be responsible. So we can set this group up. It's going to be filtered to on all of our existing clients. And we're going to be getting in touch to discuss some new products. And I'm going to save that for one of our sales teams, so they have that list in the system. And then I could also click and call directly through here to that specific group of people. So you can then also have a really quick ability to create call lists for segmented groups of people within your system. Another feature within the CRM that could be useful within the sales cycle process is within leads and deals. You can set up the different stages that you want to progress your lead and then your sales opportunity inside a deal. And within these automation rules, one feature we have is the ability to set up a robocall. So with a robocall, what we can do is we can add our message into here. Okay, so we can also dynamically populate this with personalized information. So if I wanted to maybe add their contact name into this message, for example, then I have the ability to do that in the system. So that would then, what would happen here, if that automation was saved, when we get to a certain stage of the sales process, we can send a call to that particular contact's number. And if they then answer that call, it would then play this message back to the customer. So we can choose the language, the speed, the volume that that call would get relayed. And then it would say, for example, hello, Mark, we have a sale starting today. So we can then start to run real kind of automated activity as a robocall to try and progress that sales opportunity using the robocall feature. Okay, so that's a look there at the Bitrix24 telephony features. Okay, we had a question earlier on in the week. Is there a limit to the number of numbers that I can purchase through Bitrix? There is no limit now. You can select as many numbers as you require. It's just important to remember when you're renting a number from Bitrix that the number is pre-allocated to you. You can't select the exact number that it will be. You can select the region, for example, so you can select the initial prefix, but then that number is randomly allocated to you. So you can't, say, keep an existing number and use that within the Bitrix rented method. It will be a completely unique and new number for you in the system. Okay, so moving on now to really the second way of integrating telephony into Bitrix. So we've mentioned the first option, which is Bitrix Telephony, where you rent a number directly from Bitrix24. The second option is integrations. And there's several ways we can manage integrations inside the Bitrix telephony module. So let's now go back into the telephony module. Okay, so the first option, if we're looking to integrate, so for example, there are a few reasons why you might want to integrate, first of all. So it could be that you've got a very good call rate package with your existing provider and you want to keep that call package and contract, so you want to integrate that existing provider into the system. Or it could be with your current provider that you have certain features that you really like, so you want to continue to use those features. So that could be another reason why you want to integrate those numbers rather than renting a new Bitrix24 number. So the first option in terms of telephony integrations is actually checking what we call the marketplace. So this is where we can see all of the integrations that we have with the existing providers through an application. So here we can see the selection. There's some very popular ones inside here, such as 3CX, we have Asterisk, and we also have, for example, Ring Central. So if you have your telephony provider inside the marketplace here with an application, you have the ability to simply install these apps, and you're then ready to, that has your integration ready to go. Now, just a word of warning with some of these providers, you do have to have certain packages with that provider. So for example, with Ring Central, you have to have a premium or enterprise Ring Central plan to be able to use this application. Okay, so if you do, fantastic. That means we can install this app and we're good to go. We have our telephony integration. Our Ring Central numbers can then connect and we can have those calls recorded and they can then be mapped to the CRM system. So that is the first option for integration. The second option is if you have an Office or a Cloud PBX, you also have the ability to use your Office PBX or Cloud PBX and integrate that directly with Bitrix24 using the SIP connector module. So what you can do inside here is, if it's the Office or the Cloud PBX, you select Connect PBX, and it will then open up this sliding form where you would then add your credentials. Once you've added your credentials, you then have 60 minutes to configure that and test outbound calls to make sure it is working correctly. And you can receive inbound calls via the Bitrix SIP for free. Now, to use that SIP connector for outbound calling, it will cost $49 per month as a flat rate fee for the SIP connector. And then you would just continue to pay for your outbound calls at the existing rate that you have with your contracted provider. There is no additional cost through Bitrix. It is the SIP connector fee, which is $49 per month. And the third way, if the SIP connector or the applications can't work for you, we can also use the Bitrix API to develop an integration. Now, this will be fairly costly. Just as a word of warning, you could be looking anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 for a unique bespoke integration. But for some businesses, especially large call centers, that's a fairly small amount of money to have that integration and use the power that's within Bitrix24. So that is really the other option for integration. Okay, so just moving on now to discuss some of those costs in more detail. So we've mentioned about the Bitrix telephony call rates. So if we just go back into here, we've got those call rates for outbound calling if you are to rent a Bitrix24 number. And to actually rent the number itself, you're looking at approximately $4 to $6 per month. And inbound calls, they are included in that cost. If you're going to use the Bitrix SIP connector, you're looking at around, well, it is $49 per month as a flat rate for that SIP connector. And then we mentioned if you're going to look at a unique bespoke integration, you could be looking around $15,000 to $20,000. Okay, so just before we go through the summary, another feature to mention is the call reporting. So you have a call statistics database within your application here. So here, this allows you to build your own reports and dashboards based on the call activity in your system. So maybe we want to look at the call density, for example, so we can see when we have calls coming into the system, so we can see when really we need to schedule staff in the system. Maybe we want to look at how long the call durations are for different members of our teams, for example. So you can start to build and analyze all of the call data from your Bitrix system using these dashboards. And you also get the call details tab. So this will show you every single call in the system. You can create your own filters inside here. Maybe you want to drill down to certain employees, for example. And again, we can set permissions for who can access this page. And if you want to, you can also export this data out into Excel. Okay, so in summary today, we've looked at the different options for telephony integration into Bitrix24. We can use the Bitrix rented number, and that allows us to set up our own virtual phone system with lots of different settings to personalize the phone system, such as the voice menu to route calls. We've also seen how we can do direct integrations with existing phone providers if you want to keep your own unique numbers. We've seen how that integrates with the CRM system, so we can record calls directly in the CRM and make calls very easily through the CRM system. We've just had a brief look there at the reporting tools, so how we can analyze the reports and also employee performance on those calls. And we mentioned about the low setup costs. So costs can start from as little as $4 to $6 per month for a rented Bitrix24 number. Okay, so coming soon, here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. We are here on Tuesday at 11 AM Eastern Time every week. If you do have any questions in the meantime, please do email sales@intraface.com and we can set up a meeting with you to discuss any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time today. Bye for now.